I don't know if you've ever felt this, but I'm sure you have. There's times when you just meet someone that you just feel a kinship,
Yep.
And there was something about Keith that he's and it's funny because he named his business Perfect Kind House Buyers.
Yep.
He is one of the most kindest persons I've ever met and considerate. And as I was talking to him, we had a group of people that were working together, but there was something that stood out with him. And when we would have a conversation, it was very genuine. And when he would say he would do something, he would follow through. And that's always been the way I've lived my life, is if you say something, follow through with that. And so it was interesting that though we had a group of people, him and I, you could just feel that connection, and little by little, it was just him and I, and his strengths were really my weaknesses. We would put our strengths together and it would work. We close one deal and think, okay, maybe it's a fluke. And then another deal, and then another deal. And then we started learning from each other, and we're almost finishing each other's sentences, or even thought, what do you think about that deal? I'm not really confident about that. Me neither. And then so we started to really to work well with each other, gel.
Helping hardworking real estate investors, agents, and entrepreneurs grow a better business, mindset, and future. This is the Carrot Cast Podcast. Now here's your host, Trevor Mock.
What's up, y'all? Coming back at you with another episode of the Carrot Cast. I've got a returning guest with me and a brand new guest with me, which I'm really, really excited to meet you digitally now, but in person in a month here at Carrot Camp, as of the time we're recording this. But so this is a really, really cool story, guys. At the last Carrot Camp, was it the last one, Keith, or 2 Carrot Camps ago? I'm losing track now.
It was the last one because you guys actually canceled the spring one.
That's right, dude. It's all running together for me. So at the last Carrot Camp that we had, Keith Sant came to it, and it was so cool hearing his story. We talked about it in the last episode that I did with him several months back. Guys, we're going to link it up in the show notes. Hear Keith's story, hear how he got to his first $100,000 a month, and hear how he really started that business. Well, one thing he talked about in that episode was his business partner down in Texas, who is a massive influence on him, a mentor, and they do business together. One thing I didn't really realize is they'd never met in person. And so you guys get to meet them here on this episode of the Carrot Cast. If you're just listening to the audio version of this, go to YouTube and watch the video version or go to carrotcast.com, because you're going to want to see the audio or the video version, just to kind of see the video and the dynamic. But it's really cool because here's a little backstory. The first time they're ever going to meet in person is next month at our next Carrot Camp. So I'm really but let me do a brief intro, and I'm gonna toss it over to you guys for you guys to kind of tell people about who you are, a little bit of background, then we'll kind of dig into some stuff that's working for you. But one of the cool things I'm really excited about on this episode of the Carrot Cast is we did talk on the last one how Keith was able to do a bunch of deals that first year in business, in part, of course, working with his business partner Beto. But what you didn't hear was how many hours a day he was working. Maybe all of those days, maybe some days, I don't know, we'll find out in this episode. But he was able to make a really, really, really big shift the past 6 months to where he's working a fraction of the hours, but still has an amazing business. So we're going to talk about how that has happened. And then next, we want to talk about, like, how do you guys do business together as business partners, 1,000 miles apart, and making it work really well. And I definitely want to hear from you, Beto, on how you have coached Keith and everything. I'm really pumped to be able to learn more about you and get to meet you. So I want to toss over to Keith first. Keith, who are you, man? Give a kind of a brief intro. Like I said, we'll link up the show from last time so they can really get the full details on you. But who are you? Where do you live? Kind of what's your business look like right now? And then same thing over to you next, Beto.
Yeah, absolutely. So Keith Sant, I live in Tacoma, Washington. I've been wholesaling full-time now for the last 3 years or so, and kind of started moving into, a little bit of buy and hold and some other things. I tried about every marketing channel possible. I even put ads on grocery carts and all kinds of stuff, but definitely did enough wrong to know what to do right. And yeah, that's about it.
And dude, when you were down here, it was so awesome when I think we went out to have dinner or lunch or something, and Keith opens up his tailgate to put something in it, and we see stacks and stacks and stacks of bandit signs. And we had a chance to learn a lot about bandit signs and how he does it, which is really, really cool. So I want to toss it over to the other half here. Beto, dude, who are you and kind of what's your background been? And how did you guys connect? I definitely want to hear that here in a bit too.
Absolutely. Beto Ponce, I'm here in Brownsville, Texas, originally from San Francisco, California. I had a big family, and in that process, coming to visit cousins, I eventually ended up moving back here to Brownsville. And about 26 years ago, I became a police officer. I'm still a current police officer right now on South Padre Island. But because of my father being a carpenter, I was always exposed to the real estate, working with him on the weekends and construction. And he worked closely with a realtor. And I remember the first time I was ever kind of step back was at a real estate office where they're talking about a job. And I noticed it was pictures of houses throughout the entire building, right down the middle. And I asked him, I said, "Are these all yours?" He said, "Well, no, but these are all houses that we've sold." And I just remembered about that. I remember that was one of the things that stayed within me. And so years forward, here I am, law enforcement, and looking for my first house. So, a house that we looked at, it was a foreclosure. And that was the first introduction for me many years ago into real estate. And I thought, wait a minute, this is something that I really like to do. And the transition happened about 10 years ago, where I actually did more real estate than law enforcement. And now I'm actually part-time police officer, full-time real estate. And from there, we kind of got a mutual friend that kind of put us together. And now we're doing this full-time.
Dude, I've got a question for you. The part-time job on the side. I love that. We had a whole series where I don't remember what we called it, but it was essentially people who had a job or had a part-time job on the side still. And we have a really, really awesome client up north here. The Grand brothers, Ricky and dude, I'm completely Robert. Anyway, Robert is a firefighter. And so he's still a full-time firefighter. He's a real estate agent and he's flipping houses and he's really, really active in all those. So number one, how do you do it? And why are you keeping the police job too?
So again, I guess because this is kind of strange within myself. I've always been someone that I'm a protector. I can't explain it. I have three sisters growing up and I have two daughters, my wife. I always seem to have taken that role. And when a friend of mine years ago said, "Hey, I'm going to go into the police academy," it's one of those things where it clicked. That's what I want to do. So I went to the police department, the police academy, came out, and I love it. Believe me, I love what I do, especially I work on the island. So it's a beautiful place, but I realized, to be quite honest with you, there was one time where I actually sold my first house. And when I flipped that house, I made $18,000 on that first flip. And it was exactly my yearly salary that year. And when that happened, when you talk about a paradigm shift, I was like, wait a minute, one deal. Yeah, I worked hard 3 months late at night. I pulled my sheriff's office. I was doing muriatic acid at 1 a.m. with my wife holding the light. And I'm in the swimming pool with muriatic acid. And at the end, the house came out beautiful. The neighbors couldn't believe it. And when I sold it, I realized I was able to do this on my own. And I made in a couple of months, with my own hard work, where what Keith tell you, when you start to have a team, people can start doing this. But when you can make on a flip the same thing you do in a yearly salary, then you realize, okay, wait a minute, I can probably do this full time, and still do what I love as far as law enforcement. But I love my family more. I want to be able to provide for them, more than I could if I was just on an officer salary.
Dude, I absolutely love that, because right before I hopped on with you guys, I was on with my friend Alex Pardo. He's had a wholesaling business for 15 years, and he recently stepped away from it. He says he exited it, but it wasn't a sale. It was for him, he was so full into that business that he had lost the passion for it. It was still turning a bunch of deals for him, but he lost the passion. And what you're doing is another way to make sure that you're still doing well financially. And I'm sure you guys enjoy the craft of real estate, but you've got the outlet over here of your job as a police officer that still enables you to throw yourself into that passion, which is really cool. So that's something I want people to take note of, that it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be a job I love but doesn't pay me well, or real estate that pays me well. And a lot of people love real estate and some people do it just for the money. It could be both. And so just look at what you really want out of life. That's really cool.
And real quick, Trevor, when you say that, I know it sounds odd, but I've been in this for 26 years. I'm not kidding you. When I put on my uniform, I still feel like I'm turning into Superman. I know it's a strange thing, but when I put my vest on and it says police, I got my gear, my firearm and all my gear, and I go in my unit, there's a special feeling that only that gives me. And when I'm out there, you know, and I'm helping people and I'm interacting and kids, and I love to do magic. So I'm always doing magic tricks, and I'm trying to create this different persona of us, you know, that we're, you know, we could be kind and caring and, you know, and also do our job, you know, but there is something special that when I'm on patrol that I feel nothing else can give me that feeling when I'm out there being a public servant, you know. So those are, like you're saying, those are those things that I can never give up. And I had a gentleman that he was part owner of Code 3, the light bars. Okay. He would drive in with a Ferrari years ago. And I was blown away because he was a part-time officer. But when I spoke to him, he says, nothing can replace the passion that I have as a law enforcement officer. And this guy was very wealthy. So again, what you're saying is very true. It's very important that what you do, you know, also means something to you. You know, you're not just waking up every day for a paycheck. That's not cool either.
Dude, I love it. I love it. So guys, how did you guys connect? Because you guys are Seattle and Texas. How did you guys connect, and what did that look like to start to do deals together?
We met through a mutual friend, a guy that I met up here. And I believe Beto and him were law enforcement officers one time in the past. And so Beto and I, we linked up, and Beto had been rehabbing a lot, but he never did a wholesale deal. And, you know, he just said it just wasn't working, this and that. And we got a wholesale deal within, I think, that first month. And we wholesaled it to a guy, I forget the address, but for $5,000. And I was pumped because, you know, that was the first check I ever saw from real estate. And he was pumped. And so I just ended up, you know, from behind the scenes, from the computer up here, you know, just doing everything I could. I was answering phone calls. You know, I got us on the Carrot, got a website, did all the marketing. And he was just closing them left and right.
Dude, so that's really cool. So Beto, you already had the real estate side going by then. Like,
yes.
What did you see? Because this would be really important for people that are just getting going and people who've been around for a while. What did you see in Keith and in that relationship in Keith versus going and figuring out that stuff by yourself? And like, why did you end up joining forces?
So, and there's a couple of things I'd like to share on that. I don't know if you've ever felt this, but I'm sure you have. There's times when you just meet someone that you just feel a kinship, you know, and there was something about Keith that he's and it's funny because he named his business Perfect Kind House Buyers. He is one of the most kindest persons I've ever met and considerate. And as I was talking to him, we had a group of people that were working together. But there was something that stood out with him. And when we would have a conversation, it was very genuine. And when he would say he would do something, he would follow through. And that's always been the way I've lived my life, is if you say something, follow through with that. And so it was interesting that though we had a group of people, him and I, you could just feel that connection, you know, and little by little, it was just him and I, you know, and everyone kind of felt, you know, on the wayside. And so that's also very important. You can really work well and not forced to shoot a fit. And that's kind of what happened with him and I. And his strengths were really my weaknesses. You know, his ability to get on Carrot. And he's like, Beto, there's this guy that's number 1 or number 2 on Google. I'm going to make sure that we're like a 21st. I'm going to be up there. And he was driven. And I would not know how to start. And I was the people person. I was the one that would go call the people. I'd go see the houses. I would evaluate them. I would make sure that the market value was there, what it was cost to rehab it or wholesale it. And then we would put our strengths together and it would work. We close one deal and think, okay, maybe it's a fluke. And then another deal and then another deal. And then we started learning from each other and we're almost finishing each other's sentences, or even thought, what do you think about that deal? I'm not really confident about that. Me neither. And then so we started to really start to work well with it, you know, with each other, gel.
That's cool. So what's the role you dove into a little bit, kind of the different roles you guys have. Do you guys have an official split in the role where you're kind of more the boots on the ground, talking with the sellers and doing that, and Keith is the marketing guy, or do both of you guys do some of that, the other stuff too?
They're pretty defined roles. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Because like he would. I don't know if you've ever even logged on to Carrot, honestly, but you know, I got us to, you know, number 1 for, you know, some of my house Brownsville and a few other things. I remember Beto in the beginning because you know, we were doing bandit signs, and he's like, why would you even want to do a website? Like, we're crushing it with bandit signs. We put out like 30 and we get 30 calls. Like, you know, and that's not like how it is up here in Washington. But like, I'm like, well, you know, I had free time, you know, let me put in some work. And I remember our first lead that we got our very first lead 2 years ago, we turned it into a deal. It was on Palm Valley Drive, I think it was, East Palm Valley Drive in the country club. And it was owner financed, but we got the people that owner financed it to let us assume the mortgage, and we flipped it. And that was the very first lead we got. And all the leads we've ever done through the House Buyers RGV name have all been organic.
Dude, I love it. So I've got one more kind of business structure question. Then I want to dive into some marketing stuff. And then the last part of this episode, I want to talk about life work balance, because that's a big shift that I know Keith made since then. And I just found out before we hit record that Beto was a huge influence on that as well, which is cool. So I want to dive into that, because I know a lot of people, man, who are just grinding, and they're not really, their business isn't serving them, they're serving it. So structure wise, I know you do some things up in Tacoma, up in Washington there, Keith. And of course, Beto, you're down in Texas. So the work that you guys are doing together, is it all only the Texas deals, or do you guys both share in the Washington side of it too?
So it's been primarily Texas where we would share, because, Keith pretty much, once Keith really started focusing, and Keith could talk about this more, once Keith, like he says, when we were working close in Texas, there was a lot of things that he was exposed to for the first time. And sometimes we'd have a call and like, Beto, about this number, I'm not sure. So, give me the phone number. What is it? And I would just call right there and then, and I would talk to the person, and he would listen. And I would close the deal, and then or at least go out there and see it. And I could see a lot of things that, like Keith later on told me that he picked up from me, he was utilizing up there in Washington. He's like, you know what? I was with a couple of guys that, I'm not sure. He's like, give me the number. And it's funny because I love that he would take the reins and take control. Cool. So up there, it was something that he was able to incorporate, not only what I do here and what he was able to learn from me, but all that he also has within himself to really maximize Washington. I thought, that was something that he's cultivated, and that's it.
Dude, I love it. So on the marketing side, once again, I know you guys do bandit signs. I know you do care. I'd like to dive into both of those a little bit, but what's the overall marketing mix that you guys are doing right now? And if you're comfortable sharing this, awesome. If not, no big deal. But what's the overall marketing mix you guys are using? And what does your business look like right now? Like, what does that produce? How many deals per month or income or whatever you are comfortable sharing? That way people can go, oh, cool. This input for them is equaling this output.
So for me, as Beto said, he had 10 years of real estate experience before me and him even got hooked up. Yep. And actually just a couple months before we hooked up, he got, from a bandit sign, he got 40 acres that he's now developing. And it's going to be a huge play. He can tell you more about that. And then he also just bought his second mobile home park. So he's doing a lot less volume and a lot bigger spreads. And that's where I want to get and where I'm going. But for me up here north, I'm still, closing like 3 to 5 deals a month, and they're smaller. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
Sweet. I love it. And what's the marketing mix you guys are using to generate these deals?
For me, it's, up here, Kind House Buyers. I do pay-per-click, still do bandit signs. I still do Facebook ads. And those are like the 3 main ones. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a mix. I mean, I got 3 of my deals this month. One was pay-per-click, one was bandit sign, and the other one was Facebook. So it's kind of like a little bit of everything.
And so dude, on that, I kind of want to break this apart a little bit, because there's probably a lot of people listening to this going, that's awesome. I've even got Carrot, but I'm not getting that same result. Or maybe they are and they want to scale it up. Dude, what did you do once you got inside of the Carrot ecosystem? What did you do to start to get results from Carrot, whether it's organic or PPC, Facebook? What did you do? Did you dive in and learn something? If you did, what did you learn? Was it immediate results, or did it take some time? Kind of walk people through how you went from, I heard about Facebook marketing, now it's working for me, that kind of thing.
So a lot of it, I know you hammer away all the time, but it's the credibility, putting in, sprinkling in testimonials and showing that you're actually doing things, some before and after photos. we put a before and after photo of one house that he did, and like you get so much positive reaction from sellers, from anyone. Just people love that before and after, put them side by side, and actually show that you're really doing deals, and not just really doing deals, but you're doing deals now. Also, getting testimonials, and that weren't from 2-3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Some people that they get testimonials and they quit, and so I actually. I realized over COVID, I bought a fourplex, and I was rehabbing my house, and I was rehabbing this new house that I just moved into right here. So I was super busy. And literally like 2 weeks ago, I'm like, oh man, I didn't get any testimonials recently. So I sent out like 10 emails in one day, just, of happy customers, basically copied and pasted my little template. And like 4 of them that day all wrote nice testimonials on Better Business Bureau and my, Google page. And, I did the little, I'll even give you a $50 Visa. And only one of them actually sent me their address to get that $50 Visa, which I was happy to do, put it in the mail on Friday. So,
dude.
And so to piggyback off of that, especially in a place like us, we're in a very small town here in South Texas. And what he's saying is super powerful. When you have a before and after of a property, and you actually give them the address, 123 Main Street, and people actually, they'll go by or they're nearby enough to go look at it and see the finished product. And when they see that it's real, I think a lot of times always question, is it real? But when they see it and they can drive to these properties that you're actually doing, they're like, wow, these guys are for real. And it gives them, again, that confidence to reach out to you, to call you, and work with you as well. So, and back to one of the marketing things that here it has always worked for me, along with, Facebook and being on Google is our abandoned signs. We get plenty of calls, but every once in a while, I don't know if Keith shared that with you guys. I tell people, this is one of my ninja tips, is that if you go to any FedEx office, any FedEx booth, whatever, you got these, I don't know if you ever shared that with Keith, you got these FedEx packages. They give this to you for free. They give you like 10 minimum or maximum at one time. And you get these little air bills here. And what I do is everywhere I go, I don't care, if I'm going to the store, if I'm going to the gym or even church, if I see a house that's abandoned, high grass, it just seems like it's one of those deals that it's just like, oh, I will pull this out here, and I have a letter that I always carry with me that says, hey, I'm a local investor. I buy houses, quickly, cash, I close, we pay all the closing. I slip it into this envelope, I seal it. And then on here, I will write their address information. And there's a way for us to get people's names through the county records. And I'll put their name, and then I'll put myself, and I'll slide this in here into the little slip here, and I'll leave it at their front doorstep, And it's interesting how many people, when they see this, it's legit. And they'll call you, say, I got a FedEx package. I see that you're interested. Next thing you know, I have an appointment there. I'm negotiating. I'm closing the deal. And that's one of the great ways to be able to get that face-to-face contact with the owners by leaving these little FedEx packages, there, because it gives you a sense of credibility to those people as well.
Dude, that's so good, because like the difference between putting a Post-it note on a door versus a FedEx package, right? That the FedEx package is, I'm serious. I'm investing in this conversation, this relationship with you. Oh, dude, you got the water bottle, man. I doubled up on my water bottles today. I've got a lot of podcasts today, man. So I'm drinking a lot of water. But dude, cool. I love that tip. And one thing about it too, Beto, is people need to really think about that stuff, especially in a really cluttered market right now. How do we stand out? And that's what that's about. That's about standing out so people take notice of your message. Because if they can't see your message, then there's no way that you're going to be able to then connect with them, see what their pains and frustrations are, and solve those for them. So that's the first step. You got to get through that. You got to get the foot in the door, proverbially. That's a way cool tip. What other ninja tips do you have for us, guys? Like you pulled one out there, or we need to see you do a magic trick before the end of the show. Like you can't drop that on us and not do a magic trick before the end of the show. But you guys have any other ninja things that are working?
I mean, I learned that trick from him, and I've gotten multiple appointments and leads from that. It works so well. Like those FedEx, like what's the open rate on a FedEx envelope? 100%.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, and you're already driving by these houses anyways. A lot of, Deal Machine and all these, like they're great. they're awesome, but you're right there. Like, you know, instead of spending 50 cents on a postcard times 20, however, you know, whatever your cadence is and everything, just slip it on the front door. Like Beto's even had the gardener from an out-of-state property, out-of-state owner. The gardener called the owner who said, this looks important. The owner called and he was at the point, you know, he was blocking that thing up. So.
That is cool. That's a great point. Because as an example, going back to the sticky note thing, we have clients who've used sticky notes successfully, but going back to that, right? The gardener's probably going to take that sticky note, read it, and throw it away. They probably wouldn't even have gotten to the owner. That's
correct,
cool.
correct.
That's
and
cool.
One of the things that I do, just so you know, I mean, that I have a relationship. Most people have a relationship with the UPS guy, their FedEx, or the mailman. And I've literally written checks to these guys for $500. And I tell them, listen, if there's a house out there that looks abandoned that you see is just kind of, you know, just let go, you know, if you can bring that to me, you know, send it to me. And if I buy it, I'll write you a $500 check, you know, if I close on this. And they've taken me up on it, and they'll send me texts. And matter of fact, what's interesting is that my own son-in-law is also a mailman, and I bought 2 houses from different routes that he's been on, you know, and I've given him $1,000, you know. But what's great was that he was able to see that it was real, you know, because he also had his doubts. And when he saw that I bought it, closed it, wholesaled it, and made, you know, $10,000, he's like, okay, this is for real. You know, so yeah, and so you have to kind of look at those people around you and those opportunities and use those, you know, and share that you'd also give them something back in return. There's otherwise a transaction.
I love it. I want to break down a couple numbers here, and then I want to transition over to the work-life balance, because to me, that's the most important part of all this. Because I know so many people, and I've done this before too, where you have a goal. It can be a financial goal, and that's kind of usually where most people move into. They're trying to move away from something at the start, right? I'm trying to move away from this job that doesn't pay me well, or I'm trying to move away from a job that I don't like, which wasn't your case in that case, Beto. But what the initial goal usually is a number. You know, it's a dollar amount. It's, I want to get to $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month or whatever it is. But then once we get into the thing and you get around other investors and whatnot, then it becomes a different number. It's like deal numbers, which to me, you guys were a great illustration of it. Keith said, I do a higher volume, Beto does a lower volume, but he does much bigger plays. And you're trying to now move over to a lower volume, lower deal number side of it, which I absolutely love that. And so everyone listening to this, don't compare what you're doing versus other people. Look at what you want your business to do and ask yourself, is it serving me in that way? If it's not,
absolutely.
But what are you guys doing right now? I'm going to toss this one to Keith. So on the Facebook side of things, it's working great for you up there. And I think did you go through our Facebook course? Was that one of the things that helped teach you that, or kind of what did you do to learn how to do the Facebook side of things?
Yeah, I mean, the Facebook course from you guys is how I learned it all. And then I think after I started spending so much money, Facebook kind of assigned me, you know, like a one-on-one person, and that totally helped too. I don't know what threshold that was or how they, you know, started sending me someone to work with me, but then we started tweaking stuff. You know, we had like every 2 or 3 week calls, and I remember when I first started, like, you know, my Facebook leads were actually, I don't know, like 250 or plus, which is about the same cost as the PPC up here. And now I'm down in like the 80 to 110 range, which, you know, PPC hasn't moved much. So, yeah.
So what are you finding? Are you finding, Keith, is your guys' lead to close ratio different between Facebook and Google PPC and organic? Are they the same? Kind of what do you see lead to close ratio there?
They're definitely different. I'm still closing around like 1 to 12 out of pay-per-click, and it's more like 1 out of 20 with the Facebook ads. But, you know, I feel like they still they run hand in hand. Like I wouldn't run Google pay-per-click without that at least retargeting. Like almost half of my Facebook leads are from retargeting. I don't do a huge broad audience ever since, you know, they kind of switched stuff up last year. And, but yeah.
Dude, and that's really important. So I want to reiterate that for everybody. If you guys are doing any type of marketing that you're paying for a person to go to your website, get the darn Facebook pixel on your website, set up a website visitor audience or remarketing audience, retargeting audience, or whatever the heck you want to call it. But it's an audience of people that have been on your website. and then serve them up ads. So next, Keith, and of course you went through our Facebook course, guys. If you're curious about that Facebook course, carrot.com/Facebook, carrot.com/Facebook, you can check it out. If it's right for you, awesome. If not, awesome too. But what do your ads look like? Like, what are the ones that are working for you?
I learned it from you guys, and just different testimonials. They're like 3 or 4 different testimonials that kind of, all get rid of, the doubt in the customer's mind. I mean, if they're retargeting because they went on my website for whatever reason, that wasn't enough. So it's either they don't think I'm real, they don't think I'm closing deals, they don't think I could give them the dollar amount they want. They, just whatever it is. So I have one lady, and then one lady that's like, I hit up 3 different people, and Keith was the highest. Boom, I got rid of that one. Like, why shop around? Call Keith.
Yep.
Another one was like, hey, he gave me the price I wanted. I mean, I tried to negotiate, but he wasn't having it, and it still worked. So I gave him the price that he wanted. And then just the other, But cool. Basically, I try to do use the testimonials, because the sellers are selling you, and they're going to sell you way better than you could sell yourself, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I love it. So I want to recap a couple things there, and then I want to talk about the bandit sign costs, and also any of the cost stuff that you've got on your side, Beto, as far as I want to kind of find out more of what you're doing there outside of what Keith is doing online. But with the bandit sign side of things, so when you guys are setting out bandit signs, how many are you guys usually setting out at a time, and what may that produce for you?
I usually order my bandit signs. I'm usually putting about 50 to 100 bandit signs. And now I'm actually being very strategic. At one time, I just kind of blanket, a good almost an hour distance. But I'm realizing there was some areas that weren't producing for us, or the calls were not bringing the deal that we were looking for. So we had started being a little more strategic of where the markets are. And that kind of goes back to having a good relationship with your realtors, because the realtors can also tell you where the hot spots are, where the hot areas of sales are. So when you do that, you start marketing those areas, again, for those distressed properties. And once you get in there, and one of the other keys is to try to locate investors in those areas. And you could do that by going to your county records and actually ask them for cash transactions in the previous months. Okay. And you'll start seeing some certain names of certain investors. You get a hold of them, let them know who you are, what you're doing, so that when you start picking up these wholesale deals in these certain areas, you have a place to automatically start marketing them.
Gotcha.
But usually I'm usually putting out about 100 bandit signs, probably within 2 months. I'll do 50 bandit signs, and then another month I do another 50 bandit signs, and I'll kind of just stand back and see what happens. And then again, maybe another month or 2 before I do another round of them.
Dude, I love that tip there on targeting where you're putting them. Because a lot of people they'll go to just the busiest intersections here and there, which I'm sure that's a good strategy too. But that's awesome where you're working backwards, finding out where those buyers are already buying. And they're like, I'm going to blanket those areas. That's way cool. I like it.
And if you look behind me, I have a map here. And what I'll do is I'll talk to realtors, and because we build these relationships like with Keith, they'll say, hey, you know what? There's been a kind of a shift in this particular part of Brownsville or McAllen. We're seeing a lot of sales, and so automatically, boom, I start doing my marketing out in that area, just like you're saying, because we're getting understanding that we're going to have more investors probably buying in that property in that area. So being strategic.
Dude, I love it. So I want to shift to kind of the work-life balance a little bit. So kind of going back to the last Carrot Camp where Keith was at, I remember you sitting up there in front. And I was actually flipping through my photos from Carrot Camp this last weekend. And I saw a picture of you standing up there giving your presentation. It was a slide that said how many deals you were doing. I think you did 8 to 10 or something like that month before. It was a lot of deals. You'd crossed over your first $100,000 month. And the cool thing is, number one, that is an amazing milestone. But the most amazing part about it in a good way that came from it was like the next sentence out of your mouth was that it wasn't that cool. It was like I hit the $100,000, but I didn't have a life that month. I was working so many hours, and it was just kind of this weird thing where, across this milestone was like, man, is that what I really wanted? And so Keith, why don't you walk us through that a little bit? You set this big goal, you attained it. And then what did you experience when you had reached that milestone? And then I want to talk after that, kind of what did you switch after Carrot Camp and working with Beto more on, and in your work life situation?
Yeah. So, man, like you said, I just felt miserable. I was, working way too hard. I wasn't doing all the things that I, was taught to do, and all the things that I've been structuring in my life, like, exercising, making time for my friends and my family, and doing these little things. I was, working 10 to 12, probably 12 plus hour days that month. And yeah, the checks were cool and everything, but it's not, I wasn't there to enjoy it. And that's not what the life I wanted to live. And so since Carrot Camp, I kind of realized what was important to me, what I really wanted to do. Do I really want to keep on like churning and burning these properties? And as a wholesaler, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And anyway, so I'm kind of like switching my strategy. I think I told you I bought a fourplex, and I'm super excited about that, and got another house, and I'm doing another creative finance deal right now that's going to bring me, cash flow for the next, however long. And so anyway, super excited about that as well. But yeah, that's what I'm working towards. I've been working, now I'm closing less deals. Like I closed 3 this month. I got another one that's about to close with the creative finance one. So 4, which not this month since, because right now it's August 6th, but in the last like 30 days or so. That's perfectly fine for me. And I'm working towards, it's part-time work now. So I'm able to, spend time with my fiance. I'm able to, do the things that I really want to do. I'm, flying to go visit some family tomorrow for 3 days, which is, I just feel blessed to be able to do that kind of stuff. So,
dude, isn't it so cool? It's like, I think for most of us, there's probably some people that are just smart enough to not go through that mistake, but I know I wasn't. I think for most of us, it's like we see someone out there, like there will be people watching this right now, Keith, saying, well, the $100,000 a month sounds pretty cool. Like I want to experience that myself. And maybe it is, right? But what happens is we go for that goal, we hit it, and then we go, oh, it really wasn't as cool as I thought it was going to be. It really, the clouds didn't part and the angels didn't sing, and my life didn't change when I hit this number. And it's really cool that you would recognize that really early on. As soon as you finally had hit this big milestone, you're like, okay, I want to change this. So before we hit record, you had mentioned that Beto was a huge influence in that. And kind of talk about the conversations you guys would have where you would notice Beto saying things to you where he was putting up clear boundaries where there was work and there was life. Kind of talk about that, both of you guys, on Beto. First of all, how you structure those boundaries in your life between work and business. And then Keith, what you learned in those conversations with him along the way.
I think it goes back to be always kind of the origins of things, because like Keith, between my law enforcement, putting in the long hours, and then also transitioning into real estate, I've always been an entrepreneur. There was a time where I had hot dog stands in all the Home Depots down here. I had 5 Home Depots, and I was doing exactly what Keith was doing for a long time. And I could see that it was causing friction at home. I wasn't there with my girls as much. I would come home frustrated. My wife was like, you know what, leave everything outside the door. Don't bring it in, because we could feel that energy. And it's because I had so much going on. And also my faith wasn't, for a long time, wasn't where it should have been. And I think that was, for me, the big shift was when I really started, giving my life to God, and my faith was leading me in God's word. I could feel the change in my life, and I started making the changes because I realized what was really important, like he says, was my daughters, was my wife. And I always used to say, I'm doing this for them. But in doing so, I would also affect them in a negative because of the way I was coming home. And I was so stressed and frustrated. And I realized I didn't want to do that anymore. And I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be that father or that husband. And that's when I started doing my own changes and my own kind of soul searching. And so I started doing that within myself. Again, Sundays was just for my family, time for prayer, time for my family. And that was sacred to me. And I remember Jim Rohn. I love listening to Jim Rohn. He's an incredible mentor, and he always say, if I knew the price that I would have had, that I had to pay to become this millionaire, be successful, I would never have paid it. And that's why sometimes we want to listen to mentors, because hindsight is 2020. When someone is successful and you respect says that, you're like, you know what, there's some truth to that. Maybe I should reflect my own life and see what I need to do not to have that regret myself. And that's kind of what started for me, is I realized that, I know Gary Vee said, you know what, he was doing so great financially. He realized at one time his body was going to take a toll. So he started having a full-time nutritionist, a full-time a guy that would work him out, because he realized that time is going to take its toll. And those are the things I started to learn early, and I started implementing it in my life. So when I met with Keith, I was, like I said, I've already had all these experiences. So when he would say, hey, I'll call you on Sunday, I say, hey, Keith, listen, Sunday is just my family time, brother. You want to call me and say how the game was, but not business. And in the mornings, I use my mornings to work out, to train. I train with my wife and my daughter. And I realized that's so important for us, and it's become a habit, a positive habit in our lives that also has this ripple effect. So these are the things I would share with Keith. And it was awesome. He would respect it and he would understand it. And, funny enough, he started implementing, which I love. It was a blessing.
Dude, Keith, so what were some of the biggest things that you implemented from what you soaked up from Beto, what you soaked up from other sources? Like, are there things you actually executed in your life that cut your hours down? What did you do that other people can kind of emulate there?
I mean, I don't do exactly what Beto does, like, what do they say? The smart man learns from his mistakes. The wise man learns from other people's mistakes. I was the smart man in that, so I still wanted to, but at the same time, I would never take that back, because those 10, 12, 13-hour days, whatever, is what gave me the knowledge and, those extra hours, the knowledge and experience that I needed to fast track. So I am closing multiple deals a month on my own now, but now I'm all about it. Yeah, I definitely want to take some time for myself. I need to feel complete and happy. Yeah, charge your batteries for real. And that's it's so important to me. So, I mean, I wouldn't tell anyone to not do everything they can and work, as hard as they can, because I'm a big supporter of that. I think, anyway, there's a Grant Cardone quote that it's basically, if anyone ever tells you to do less, they're either not your friend or they're very confused. So I really like that quote. And, but I'm not on that 10X level anymore. I mean, definitely I want to, 10X my income, but with, a lot less hours in the day.
Dude, and that's the thing, I think, with the 10X thing, dude. I love a lot of Cardone stuff. With the 10X thing, I think where most people go with it is they look at 10X the income as the main thing. But what if you look at 10X the family time? What if you look at 10X the fitness level, 10X the energy? And so whenever we do the 10X, that's what we always have to look at and go, okay, cool. But if I 10X this, how can I do it without negative 10Xing this thing over here? Correct. And it's just really important that we balance those. And it seems like you guys are getting a really good balance of both of those. And I want to kind of double down too, where you had talked about that I wouldn't trade it for the world to have those 10, 12, 13, 14-hour days in the early days. I think you have to do that in the early days oftentimes. With Carrot, it was the same way. I've told that story in the podcast a lot. I've told it at Carrot Camp where with Carrot anyway, it was about 2 years into the business. That's what I find with most entrepreneurs. It's in that first 12 to 24 months that you've really got to hustle to figure this thing out. Like that's where you get that separation. That's where you get the separation from the other people who are not willing to make that sacrifice up front. But what I want to make sure entrepreneurs don't do is I want to make sure entrepreneurs don't make the shift, too late. I see a lot of people, they're 5, 6, 7 years into their business. They're still grinding the 10, 12 hours a day. I'm like, that you did it wrong. Like you did that wrong. But if you're in your first 2 years and you're grinding, do it. And then get the systems put in place, dial in that business, and then start to optimize the other parts of your life, which you guys have both done that. Dude, Beto, with you, I guess I want to toss that question to you. So you've got the 2 jobs. Did you have a period where you were, just grinding on the 10, 12, 14-hour days too in the early days?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want a lot of people to realize that there was a time in my life where I had a house, I had owner finance, It was a beautiful home on the water, indoor swimming pool. But we were grinding to keep the payments on that house, $5,000 a month. And it was everything. Everyone was working together, my daughter and my wife, together to make this happen. And all of a sudden, the gentleman that I own and financed to me passes away. And then the wife goes back to China. And then the bank finds out that they weren't involved in the transaction. So they called a note. It was horrific.
Jeez.
Long story short, I lost over $100,000 and I lost the house, and I sold my boat, my car, my jet skis to try to make it work. And it didn't. At the end, guys, I lost everything. Like, I literally was down, I was in a rental. I was down and out. I was one of the worst times of my life. And I didn't have any savings anymore. I lost everything. And I was telling Keith that this was that point where I listened to a video from Cody Sperber. Yep. And Cody Sperber was talking about getting out there and getting things done. And he was talking about getting these white little signs, going to Home Depot, buying these little stakes they would do surveys on, and get these little roof nails, nail them together and just put there right with a Sharpie, we buy houses with a phone number. And I remember I said to myself, I'm not going to let myself just, be down here. I'm going to do something. So I got up at 6 a.m. I went and got the signs. I got the stakes. I was there writing the signs, and I was telling Keith, I was sticking them out all over the city. Before I came home, I already had a couple of phone calls, and next thing you know, here I am getting calls, looking at deals. And that was my way back, and so a lot of people that see, like Keith did $100,000 a month, you need to start somewhere. But just what I want people to realize is that it's possible. It really, really is. Yep. And what you said is really important, Trevor, is that once you start grinding, once you're putting the hours in, and you see that you're getting some momentum, you're getting a little income. Sometimes when you're making that money, it's hard to let it go because you've worked so hard for it. But you have to realize, everyone, that if you don't have the systems in place, it's hard to grow. It's almost impossible to grow. And when you have the systems in place, it allows you to bring others to network, to power team like myself and Keith. And then all of a sudden it just becomes a little easier. And then now you're working less, smarter, and making more money. But we do have to start with a grind so that you also can feel, like they said, happiness is in the pursuit of a worthy goal. It's the progress itself that you find the joy. It's not really the goal. And sometimes having those 13-hour days, like Keith saying, there's a joy in that I did that, and that's why I'm here. And the last thing I want to share really quickly is that I met a gentleman at AREA. And he says, it took me 28 years to put together 100 doors. We call 100 doors individual houses. He said, but I want to share with you guys, last week, I signed at a title company for a 100-door complex. He said, if I known I could have done that so long ago, I would have bought. So his thing was like, buy more doors. And so just really quickly, that's why I transitioned into mobile home parks. Because now I have. So now I have, when I bought one park, it already came with 25 tenants. So the very next month, I owner financed it. The very next month, I made money. And then I bought another park. And then right now, I'm in process right now of closing a 9-unit apartment, in a little city. But I'm realizing that this is where my leverage is now, is in multiple doors in one transaction, to create that cash flow. And I think once you get that cash flow, it alleviates so much stress. And now you can start doing things that you really want to do, but you do have to have that grind for a while.
Yep, dude, that's so, like, everyone needs to take that last 3 to 4 minutes, rewind it, listen to it again, rewind it, listen to it again. Cause it takes the whole story arc, man. Like, it's the entire story arc, from you guys having that house taken out from underneath you, from you being in the trenches where you've got to do it. But then you made a conscious shift, and Keith is making that shift as well. And I made that shift with Carrot and some other things where you said, okay, if I want to do better financially, I can either 10x my time, or I can 10x my goals, but do it in a way to where it doesn't 10x my time, which then you go, oh, shoot, will my current strategy of wholesaling get me there? Well, I can either build a big team or start looking at different deals. And you made that choice to go, I'm going to start looking at different deals. And that's the thing. A lot of people need to start to look at that shift. If you're in a spot as a wholesaler or a real estate agent and you're looking at your goals and you're like, man, I'm doing good, but I'm not really getting as close to my goals as I want to, unless I either build a big team or I add more hours. Look and see if there's a different strategy that will get you instead without having to do those if you don't want to do those. For me, mine was a little bit different. Like I ended up having that same question and conversation with myself with Carrot. And my decision was, I'm just going to learn how to build a big team. Yeah, and I thought that was going to be the worst thing in the world. I dread it. I'm like, I don't ever want to do that. And in 2016, that's when I made that decision. I'm like, this is about freedom and impact. I can have freedom, but if I don't build a bigger company for me, I won't make the impact that I want to make. And so I just dug in and learned how to build a team. And we're 37 people now. I've got more freedom than ever. I make more than I did, and I have more impact than I've ever had. And so just choose the path that's right for you guys.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, go for it. Yep.
Real quick, just so back to teams and influences. As you remember, always to trying to build relationships. I just want to let you guys know, in the process of wholesaling, I ended up wholesaling a house to a builder, ended up being one of the biggest builders down here, and we became good friends. Well, I found a house on the water. It's worth $400,000, and the deal was that the daughter was now in charge of the father's estate because he had dementia. I reached out to her, just like what Keith's talking about. We do a skip tracing. I reached out to her, closed that deal on contract for $200,000. A $400,000 home on the water. And I reached back out to this builder and I said, hey, I got this deal. The builder bought the property, cash, just wrote a check to it. But in the agreement was I was 50% owner of that house because I brought him the deal. I put in about $10,000 in the rehab cost of it. But now we just got a $350,000 offer on a house that we're in at $220,000. So we're looking to split $130,000. And so I want everyone to know that it doesn't always have to be you, but if you can bring the deal and you have the relationships, which is really important and key. Talk to builders, talk to, engineers, talk to planners, anyone in the industry that you're in and build a relationship, because you never know who one of those persons will come in with you on a deal. And so I didn't bring any money initially. I just bought a deal. So when you get good at this, and like what Keith's talking about, his marketing's out there, people are respecting him. He got the testimonials. You build this, people start to have this belief in you. And then all of a sudden you reach out. So now I leverage this home with somebody else's money through a key relationship, but because I also had credibility here where I live. So again, it's really important. So a lot of people can realize that they can also bring in an income, bring money. It doesn't have to always be necessarily theirs.
Dude, one last point here, and I know you've got to go, Beto. One last point to tag on that is we have a growing audience in the real estate agent side of things. And so there's a number of real estate agents who might look at that and go, well, shoot, why would that person have sold for $200,000? Is this real estate investor serving that person, or are they taking advantage of them? And I want to walk you guys through this because in any time that in any market, there's two sides to it. Cars, groceries, whatever. There's the wholesale side and there's a retail. Okay. So in groceries, there's companies that they're wholesalers on the grocery side where they take goods that another store doesn't want anymore, or they overbought and they've got a pain and they need to get rid of them, or they'll take them from this store that doesn't want them or need them and sell them to this other store. And someone might go, why would that store sell these goods that are clearly worth more to this wholesaler? Well, it's because they've got a pain and they'd rather have that off of their lap and not have to deal with going out there and trying to find the end buyer themselves. And they just want to be done with it and they're happy with it. Well, with this seller, like Beto was saying, the owner has dementia, which there's a pain point in the family. The daughter probably didn't know how to deal with it, and it sounded like it needed money to repair the property. So if she would have went to a real estate agent, or maybe even she did, they would have said, well, it's going to be really hard for us to sell this property. It's going to take a while. Do you have money to put in to do these repairs? I don't, And that's where the real estate investor steps in and they say, hey, we can solve this. You are going to have to give up some equity in exchange because we're going to take on the risk of this transaction. But here's what we can pay you right now to solve that problem. And so real estate investors unlock those hard transactions. They unlock the ones that would be really hard to sell in the retail market or impossible. And then the cool thing is this, you guys take on that transaction, you make the house beautiful for someone to come in. And then what do? You turn it over to a real estate agent to sell the house at a higher price to an end buyer. Everybody wins. And now you guys turn an unmarketable property into a marketable property. And so agents work with investors, investors work with agents. Both are required to make it go round. And we're going to see that more and more in the industry, y'all. So
you nailed it. You nailed it. The house was an hour away from her. It had a pillar that had sunk into the ground, so the house was kind of caving down because of the erosion of the earth. So a realtor could not have sold it because it could not have been financed because of the condition it was. And she didn't know what to do with it. So exactly what you said was what happened. She was the one who kind of said, "This is you're helping me out of the situation. We bought it, we fixed it. And you're right, it's listed with a realtor. So everyone participated, and everyone, like I said, everyone's family is being fed through this one transaction.
Yep. Dude, I love it.
Absolutely right.
Guys, this has been a fun podcast. Great to meet you, Beto, and I'm pumped to meet you in person here. And Keith, of course, great to chat with you again, man. And guys, I want you guys to take all the different lessons. We touched a ton of different topics on this, and pick the one you want to execute and implement in your business, in your life. Buy back more of your time so you can have better relationships with family, be healthier physically, be healthier spiritually and financially. Start to adjust your business model if adding more hours isn't what's going to get you there, and dive in and do the things that they're talking about in the marketing. Bandit signs are still working. Get creative with getting your message in front of people with those FedEx envelopes. Use PPC, use SEO, use Facebook. They work amazingly well when you have the right websites that convert well, the right training behind that, which we help you guys with. Just go to our website and check it out, and we can help you do the same thing that we've helped these guys do. So I appreciate you guys hopping on the podcast. Any parting words for the guests?
No, I'm super excited to come hang out with you guys at Carrot Camp. I sold Beto on the idea, and he's coming, so I'm super excited. It's gonna be a blast. Oh, and Coach Paul invited us river rafting. So.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to come early then, or stay a little bit late?
Yeah. Come early.
Cool. Awesome. I love it. Well, guys, appreciate that out of you guys. Everybody like, subscribe, do whatever it is. Give us a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. That is what helps us spread the message even more, to help people create businesses of freedom, of flexibility, and truly make an impact for your communities and your family. Talk soon, and thank you guys very much.